Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivemy.
And I'm Diana McCullough.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week on the podcast, we are talking about the new television series. We are talking about Batman, the Caped Crusader.
Doesn't get more heroic than Batman.
That's a classic.
This is just an OG.
That's an OG.
He's one of the top three.
It's a classic. This is in the... not a direct sequel, but in the style of and familiarity of Batman the Animated Series.
Brought to you by some of the same folks who made mostly Bruce Timm.
Mostly Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, I think. Is
Paul Dini? I don't think he's involved.
No, okay, never mind. It is Bruce Timm.
As far as I know.
So we've got that. So a spiritual successor, we'll say.
I think that's the term, much like Twisters was a spiritual successor to Twister, but didn't involve any of the same characters or people.
Just
the Twisters.
Twister's the perfect example. Everyone's talking about it.
It was just recent.
I know, it was. It was right there. We just did it.
You know, Twisters, Batman. It's the same franchise, folks. Open your eyes.
Whoa, Diana's become a full truther for Batman Twisters.
I want to see Batman fight a tornado.
Wow.
Right now.
Hold on to your butts, everybody.
Hopefully season 2.
It is happening. We're talking about the entirety of the first season of Batman, the Caped Crusader. And since this is a new show, as we do anytime we talk about something new, we are going to give you a spoiler-free review. So in case you want a taste of the episode, a pre-review to know whether or not this is worth your time, we're going to give you a spoiler-free review. Then, once you hear the theme music, we will enter our spoiler-filled section. Makes sense. Pretty straightforward.
That's how we do it here on Talk from Superheroes.
That's how we do it. It's how we've always done it. It's probably how we'll continue to do it. So let's start with the spoiler-free review, the usual, the simple question. Let's start with, Diana, did you like it?
I did like it. I liked it quite a bit. It is not a love. It's pretty far from, it's like quite a high like. It's a show I really liked and have many small critiques of. I think it could be a little peppier. I think it could be a little more energized, or if it's not going to be more energized, the noir has to be amped up even more to be a little campier or something. Something to just keep your attention a little longer. And I think it needs a little bit more Batman. But what I really truly love about it it feels a lot like Batman the Animated Series in a lot of ways of animation and seriousness and tone. And overall, I just really love that it's just the essence of Batman. It's just pure diluted Batman. It's not like, this is a cool twist on Batman, or he's Lego, or he's with the whole Justice League, or, his mom is the Joker in this one like they've done before. It's like, no, this is Batman from literally the 1940s. It's as essence of Batman as you can get. Catwoman's got her OG costume. This is what Batman looked like back then. Alfred used to be a more heavy-set man. This is the actual, original comics Batman. And I just really like the simplicity of it. I love there's no Easter eggs beyond just what's obviously happening in the story. There's nothing like that. It's just do you want to watch Batman? I'm like, I do want to just watch Batman. And I really like that about it, that it's just Batman. It's simple to watch. It's easy. It's fun enough at times, but it's it's got a few moral lessons that are a little shadier than I'd like, but I really do enjoy watching it. But it's got several issues. Andrew, did you like Batman, the Caped Crusader?
I like it less than you. I think it's just fine.
I can understand why it's totally fine, but tell me more.
So I think it is just fine because I agree with you. It does capture, in many ways, it captures the spirit and tone of the animated series and kind of continues that forward. But it is Batman the Animated Series, oops, all the mid episodes.
Yes, I will say there's hardly a banger in here.
It's all the kind of because when you think about Batman the Animated Series, you think about Heart of Ice, you think about Almost Gotham. You think about these really great and powerful episodes. You think about Grey Ghost. And it's there are these amazing animated series episodes. And then there are episodes in the animated series that are fine because they were doing 24 a year and there's some filler and there's this is pleasant. This is all of the pleasant episodes where nothing is campy or comic booky enough. There is nothing that gets as kind of we're full on punching Killer Croc in a sewer this episode as the animated series did. And there is nothing as detective-y noir as the animated series. This just kind of rocks a mid-ground where it never really changes speeds. And I find that a little bit boring, and it made me a little sleepy, frankly, where I was just like, I'm kind of having a tough time staying awake for a lot of it because it's just kind of the same. It hits a like a white noise of what a kind of vague memory of the animated series is, and it maintains that for 10 episodes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's just kind of where I'm at, where I'm just like, oh, it's fine. It is straightforward. I do like that it is not kind of like, up its own ass of like cameos and these characters. And remember this to be like, here's some new interpretations, which are like, I like the new interpretations. I kind of like where they're going. I like the introductions. I think that there's a lot about that that's fun, but it's not as mysterious and detective-y as it thinks it is. And it's not as fun and campy as it could be. And I kind of want it to play with both of those, like the old animated series did. There were episodes in the animated series that were just joy and jokes and fun. And then there were ones that like actually were high drama. And this doesn't really have either.
I don't disagree on any of those points, but I still quite liked it. But yeah, I completely agree. It's like, it definitely wants to be the noir Batman, not the fun comic book Batman. Because original comics were really just like, he didn't have any stuff yet. He had fists and a microscope. He didn't even have a phone. So they did that, but they don't really, doesn't feel like they know enough about noir to make it interesting. Because noir can be interesting. Like, it's slow and it's moody, but it's not really that here. But I'd still just enjoy the essence of Batman. I like more the potential, because this is very much a year one Batman. And I'm like, man, year two Batman's going to get even better than this. And maybe they'll fix all the little things, and I'll get Batman the Animated Series back, basically.
Yeah.
But I don't disagree on any particular points.
Yeah, and I think that also if someone really loved this, I wouldn't disagree with them. Like, when it comes to 90s nostalgia revival type of thing, like when we talked about something like X-Men 97, that was the spirit of that show, kind of modernized and updated. It's almost like hey, remember your favorite meal as a kid that your mom used to make? X-Men 97 is like, we're going back and looking at that recipe and modernizing it and making that spaghetti or whatever that you loved. And then you take something like Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and it's like, we're the spirit of what you remember liking, and we've tweaked that recipe and this and that. And Batman the Caped Crusader just feels like, remember having cereal? Here's it, a bowl of cereal. Remember when you used to have Trix before you were worried about healthy cereals? It's a bowl of Trix. And that kind of takes you back, doesn't it? And it's like, it is, but it's a simple taking me back to the thing that I used to love. It's not this is the recipe that my mom made that I remember so fondly. It's just here it is.
Can I change your metaphor slightly at the very end?
Please, help me out.
I feel like the metaphor is more, right, just until the very end, it is, if it's like cereal, I feel like Batman the Animated Series was Trix, and now I've been given a bowl of Shreddies.
Right,
We took the sugar out.
Right. Yeah.
It's still cereal.
Yeah. Yeah, or a knockoff side brand.
Trax.
Yeah. This is Trax. It's healthy, but it has purple coloring, and it's not quite the same.
Not really Trax.
Okay.
Those are for kids, though, I guess.
It does kind of remind me of when I was young. Yeah.
All right, so that's where we're landing on Batman the Caped Crusader, I guess.
And can it be spoiled?
If you know anything about Batman, no.
Yeah, I think I would say only mildly, because they do go for some reimaginings and kind of recontextualizing of existing villains. Mm-hmm. And I think that they make some interesting choices there.
I also like the choices they've made here that are not whoa, surprising, but oh, that's different.
Pleasant little surprises.
Yes.
Nothing that's load bearing where I'm if you get that spoiled, it's going to be a real bummer. But it might be that's fun if you just kind of experience it for yourself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Very mild spoilers.
Sweet. Mm-hmm. All right, so that's our spoiler-free review. I think it's fine. You think it's pretty good, high good? You like it.
I like it.
And I think it's fine. And it can't really be spoiled other than some just mild little smiles. And we are now going to get into the spoiler-filled section of the episode. Let's talk more about Batman the Caped Crusader. All right, we are now in the spoiler-filled section for the full season of Batman the Caped Crusader, and I'm very happy for you that you found a little bit more joy in this than me, that this kind of brought you to a nice place.
It did bring me to a nice place. I'm not going to disagree that it can be a little sleepy, but I don't even think I felt very sleepy until like the very end because we were binging it. Because I remember, because like it's the binge model again because it's all coming out at once. Because like Batman the Animated Series, you only got one a week. And you'd never be sleepy during one episode of Batman. Like, you'd be like, well, we're just going to watch one and be like, yeah, new Batman.
It's Batman.
It's Batman. But even as an adult, I remember a few years ago, we actually started rewatching Batman the Animated Series. And if you watch more than 3, you do get a little sleepy. It's even the very good episodes. Like, the tone is just not like, woo, it doesn't energize you. Even if you're like, it's art, actually watch the original. This is nowhere near the level of the original, no matter what. But I do think the binge model makes it feel sleepier than it maybe is.
I can fully agree with that. Yeah, I can absolutely. I think that there were ways to kind of make it, to modernize it a little bit and make it better for the platform it's released on while still maintaining the spirit of the original that they don't quite do. And like, yes, rewatching the animated series, you know, it's not meant to be kind of binged, and it doesn't even feel right when you consume it that way.
It doesn't feel right when you do that.
But it's also a lot of episodes, and there is like more playful fillers and in between and quieter things. This is a like, if you're doing 10 episodes, it should hit. I should be able to make it through 10 and not feel sleepy, but there's no hook. Like, the only real through line of this whole season is that Harvey Dent will become Two-Face, a thing that we all know, but there's no real mystery around it. There's no, like, at no point does an episode end and I'm like, whoa, where are we going to go next? Every episode feels self-contained in a way that isn't fun. It's not fun self-contained.
Because I even as we were watching it, it was very weird the last 3 episodes were a 3-parter about Two-Face to me. Because I was like, oh, you made these, even though this isn't why people make cartoons anymore. I was like, oh, you made these so they could be released weekly later. So you could just pop on any episode you want and they're not connected. And that's kind of also the beauty of the animated series. You pop on any episode, they're not connected. Unless the rare 2-parter, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this season ending with like a 3-parter, I was like, oh, so it's like, it's not just pop on any episode you want. But it also, like, there's not, like, a huge driving force in that 3-parter either.
Yeah.
And I wasn't waiting all season to find out if Harvey would become Two-Face, because sometimes it's just, like, might not happen until season 2 or 3. Like, I used to watch Gotham. I know sometimes you just introduce a guy and he doesn't become a villain for 3 or 4 seasons.
He might never become it, and it'll just be this thing.
Gotham just likes to be a little tease, the live action show. So I was like, yeah, I'm not even sure you're going to do it. Two-Face could just not be here for 3 seasons.
Yep, easily.
Barbara's not Batgirl yet.
Yeah.
She's here.
So it's like we've got every Robin in one episode as a little. That was the, I think we said in the spoiler-free review, it's not full of Easter eggs. That was the only thing where it was like, you've really dogpiled here.
Yeah, either none of you will become Robin or he's going to get a ton of Robins at some point. They're all friends.
I think none, because like I think it's just meant to be a joke at this point.
Tim wasn't there.
And I know that that's exciting for you.
It's usually not exciting for me when Tim gets left out, because I'm like, hey, where's Tim? My favorite Robin. But when we're talking about like excluding people as Robin, and
because
Tim's not there,
we're doing a bunch of them as a joke.
I'm like, oh, Tim wasn't there, so he could be Robin.
I do want to say one big positive for this show, because like I'm gonna have a lot of just like, and I don't want to be a buzzkill, but I do think there is one very big positive. I actually want to give a lot of love and credit to Hamish Linklater playing Bruce Wayne Batman. Obviously, huge shoes to fill.
The biggest shoes in the world.
Because there have been many other people who have voiced Batman quite successfully. But when you are doing something that is a spiritual successor for the animated series, after the passing, rest in peace, of absolute legend Kevin Conroy, that's huge shoes to fill. That's very big. Like, that man cast a shadow.
A shadow as big as Batman.
Yeah.
So, because, like, there have been other Batmans, you're right, but there hasn't been, I think, another animated Batman that has had this much, like, press or push.
Yes.
Of, like, sometimes you just have little Batman things, or you have, like, a Young Justice episode that has Batman.
And even, like, doing another voice in this series is Diedrich Bader, who is the voice of Batman on The Batman. that animated
I
series.
thought that was Brave and the Bold.
Was it Brave and the Bold?
Yeah, he's a great Batman.
I think he's
a great,
fun
Batman.
He's a great, fun Batman. And he's also, I think, doing a phenomenal job of Harvey Dent in this. And we can talk about that in a moment. But yeah, Hamish Linklater is huge shoes to fill, a really tough time, especially as something that's not just any Batman. It is the spiritual successor to that Batman, the one that we all think of, the one that we hear when we read comic books. And I really do think he's doing a phenomenal job.
I also think he nailed it. He's not doing like really a Kevin Conroy impression. You're not like, is that Kevin Conroy? But he is really doing the Kevin Conroy. Bruce Wayne is higher up and happier, and Batman has the darker, deeper voice. But both sound like real voices.
Yes, they do.
Like Bruce's does sound a little bit put on, but every now and then it's not quite put on if he's talking to like Leslie Tompkins or something, or someone he actually likes.
Yeah.
And isn't faking for. He's like really finding all the levels of Bruce that Kevin Conroy used to play, and he's doing a very, very good job of it.
And he's doing it with his version, with his, like, it's not a reimagining, but it's him being like, well, Kevin did it like this. What if I do it like that when it comes to like understanding the context of this character? But he's not trying to do a voice match or an impersonation. He's trying to impersonate the understanding of the character that Kevin Conroy brought. And I can really feel that. There is a respect and honor here without trying to simply impersonate. And I've got a lot of love and respect for it.
I think this is kind of like some of the things I meant when I was like, season 2 could be like way better. Because I'm like, if Hamish stays, what a great Batman. He's doing a really great job. And that's a lot of Batman. It's who you have playing Batman.
Yeah.
It's so load bearing, obviously. Like that seems like such an obvious thing to say, but like a voice actor who's not doing something interesting or new or doesn't understand Batman will be like, turn off, we're not even gonna finish it.
Right.
It throws you completely. But yeah, I really like his interpretation and his like, it feels like honoring Kevin without doing an impersonation of Kevin.
Yes,
and
1,000%.
I think that's really nice. Yeah.
1,000%.
I think he's nailing it.
And I think similar to Kevin as well, he is doing a better job of Batman. And he's still kind of finding his Bruce Wayne, which admitted in interviews, Kevin has even said, like, it took him a while to find his Bruce. And if you watch some of those early episodes of the animated series, it isn't until season 2 and kind of onward that, like, Bruce is a little bit more locked in and consistent. So Kevin Conroy himself admittedly is like, it took a while to figure out Bruce a little bit better. And with Hamish's, I can even feel that in the performance as well, where I'm like, okay, you're at 80% of understanding Bruce, you're at 100% for Batman, and I feel like you can get there. And I feel the same. I hear the same kind of growing pains of understanding this character
because he's so hard. Because Batman, in a way, is straightforward because he's actually because Bruce thinks he is Batman. Like that's his like. I'm really myself right now. I'm Batman. Like so, I'm not like there's not as many layers. But when you're Bruce, you actually are Bruce. Like you're a man who's rich. You're not like that's not a lie, but you're like putting on the Playboy act or the aloofness act or whatever you're doing. So there's actually more layers to playing Bruce than there is to playing Batman, oddly enough. So I absolutely get that it's harder.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a challenge, but I think he rises to it. And then the other mention of voice casting is as much as these are episodic, the small seasonal through line, I would say, is Harvey Dent's Two-Face. And I think Diedrich Bader is doing a really wonderful job as Harvey Dent's Two-Face.
Diedrich Bader is just like maybe an underrated actor all around. Like, do you guys even know how many good voices and acting Diedrich Bader has done? Like, yeah like Brave and the Bold is such a good it's such a fun Batman. And he is really good here. Yeah, like you feel like you're like, oh, I like this Harvey guy. Oh, wait, is he a little bit crooked? No, he's actually putting villains away. I think I still like him. And you actually like, and he's Two-Face, who has two faces, obviously, and two personalities. And even before he gets acid in the face, you're just like, oh, this guy kind of does have genuinely two sides to him. And and Diedrich's doing a really good job of like making him charming while still making him like a bit of a like, fuck this guy. But he's like not so like crossing the line that you're like, I hate him.
Yes, yeah.
Really fine line that he's walking and just rocking it.
He has had the version of Harvey he's doing is a version of Harvey where these two personalities exist in harmony. It is a Harvey that exists in the gray, where he's like, I put away criminals, but also I will cut them a sweetheart deal if they dime out their bosses. And I understand that there is some wiggle room in the legal system. And even Batman later describes him as like, he did some ethically ambiguous things, or he did some morally ambiguous things, but his intention was always to help this city. So he plays it as Harvey, where these personalities coexist, where yes, and I think that's very real and true of people, to be like, we all have multiple sides to ourselves that we've learned to kind of harmonize and coexist. And Harvey really exists in the gray of Gotham. He's not this beacon of light that is turned, which is sometimes the portrayal of him. And I really like that, to be like, this is a man who is gray, and the tragedy has separated that gray into two warring sides of him. He does not know how to exist in harmony anymore. And I think that that's kind of a fresh take on Harvey Dent as a character, as opposed to the white knight turned dark, to be like, no, he's the gray knight turned into a split personality.
Oh, man. And that's so much harder. Have you ever tried to get the black and white out of gray?
That's tough.
That's what making gray is easy.
Way easier.
You take some black, you take some white, you get some gray. You start with gray?
You start with gray. I don't know how you get those apart.
And you throw some acid in his face, apparently. But you could, yeah, I totally agree. The little bit of darkness and the little bit of light is already there. He's absolutely a fully gray character who is living on both sides, where Batman thinks he's an ally and Rupert Thorne equally thinks he's an ally, and neither are wrong. Yeah. He's not like double crossing either of them. They're both right. Like, he will put some people in jail, absolutely, and he will let some people walk. Yeah.
He is making new moral decisions in every moment according to the situation, not according to a moral absolutism that he has decided governs his life.
And I think Diedrich's doing a really good job. I will say, once he becomes Two-Face, I didn't think there was like enough Two-Face there for me. I will say he didn't do the coin at all. Barbara did. And if you're gonna kill him at the end, that means we never get coin. So like, we're in the spoiler-filled section. So Harvey dies. So I'm like, he didn't do any coin stuff. That's no good.
Yeah.
And I just didn't think the delineation of like Harvey and Two-Face was clear enough a lot of the time. Like, he really was Harvey like a lot. Like, there was no voice change.
I respectfully disagree with that.
Okay, that's fine. Like, no, there was like an attitude change, but I wasn't like, oh, it's clearly Two-Face now. Oh, it's clearly Harvey now. Like, there was the gray came back.
Okay.
Every now and then for like a lot of the parts. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I could use a little bit more delineation when he actually Two-Faces up.
Okay.
But great performance though.
Great performance though. And I do want to ask you, how do you feel about the opening theme?
Oh man, it fucking sucks.
It sucks.
It's nothing. When Batman the animated series has like literally just a short little thing as well, but it's like it gets you going. This is probably the sleepiest part of the episode, is the opening. Like, it's moody and it's got like the nice shadowy shots. So like the images are absolutely fine. But like the music is just like, like, do you need a go to bed show? Watch Batman the Caped Crusaders opening credits. Like,
I think it could rule in a different show. It does not tonally match this at all. It is an opening that feels very reminiscent of like a True Detective, very like a very long through line serialized story of like, who is it who's been murdering people in Gotham? Like, every episode maybe has like a villain of the week, but it starts with like Batman being like, I gotta find who's leaving the trail of bodies throughout Gotham. And like, that is it is a murder mystery. If this was a murder mystery show, to be like, where does the trail of bodies lead? And it's a big detective film noir story, and Batman has hints of that, but it's episodic little adventures, so it just does not match the tone. It does not match like, in the style of this show being not quite year one, maybe Batman year two. Like, he is young, he's making a lot of mistakes. The Joker has not been introduced yet. If it was something along the lines of like, people are turning up dead with playing cards, and like, we as an audience would know what's up, but it's a season of Batman trying to figure that out, and like, along the way that crisscrosses with a mob story, with a Clayface story, and bam, 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 then the opening would tonally match the show a bit more. But right now, the opening is just like, whoa, we got to get to the heart of darkness inside Gotham. And I'm like, do we? I really don't feel like we do, because then the show starts, and I don't know, there's an actor who swaps faces. It's like, it doesn't match anything.
I kind of disagree. I agree it doesn't match, but I don't think it really is good for any show. I think it's too bland no matter what. Like, even if it was a True Detective, I'd be like, skip credits. I would like get to the, it's not setting a tone enough in any way, I think, for any show for me. It really is like, it feels phoned in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't even like change. It doesn't have like, it never gets more energy. It doesn't have any kind of like key changes. It doesn't become a different tone halfway through. I can't even think of what it is right now, but I feel confident in everything I'm saying.
It's just kind of some sepia tone shots of Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just meant music-wise.
Oh, yeah. Music-wise, it's just like, just...
The shots I don't mind.
Yeah, it's just a couple of strings. It's just, it's not anything.
Yeah, the music's nothing.
It doesn't set you up for adventure.
No.
Because I realize that, like, the animated series opening is iconic, and maybe you can't match that, and also rights-wise, you don't have the rights to that Elfman score and this and that. But this doesn't set you up for adventure. At no point am I like, woo, we're doing it, Batman.
You're not stoked to watch Batman.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It should be like one of those 1 second ones where it just shows the title, and you're like, Batman.
That's it. Yeah.
Batman time.
Which does lead me to another criticism where, like, this opening sequence, it doesn't match the tone. It doesn't set me up for, like, this is Batman going on adventures, which largely the show isn't. This show could be called Gotham. I frankly don't feel like Batman's the lead character in any way, and there are huge swaths where neither Batman nor Bruce Wayne is around.
I also think this show could be called Gotham, and am really surprised how little Batman is in it because it's animated. Like, it feels like it has so little like, it feels like a CW show for how little Batman it has in it.
Right.
Remember Gotham Knights? Which was like, we had Batman for 30 seconds because we weren't allowed to show him, and those suits are hard to make, and all of his gadgets are terribly complicated. Mm-hmm. But this is an animated show, and you can have Batman as much as you goddamn want. He could be in every scene, and it costs the same amount of money.
Yeah.
You didn't even get a super famous person to voice Batman. Saving money left and right, and yet Batman still hardly appears. Like, I genuinely agree, and I don't dislike any of the PD characters. Like, it's Barbara and Renee and Gordon are like the mains, and like I don't dislike them, but I'm also like, I feel like Batman feels like Poochie. Literally every time he's not in a scene, I'm like, where's Batman? Because it's been 4 scenes in a row, and he's not involved in this storyline in any way.
And nothing is from his perspective as well. That's the other thing that really makes it not the lead character, because
the police characters are all from their perspective.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, because there are some episodes of Batman the Animated Series that showcase other characters more. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I mentioned good episodes earlier, like Heart of Darkness is it is Mr. Freeze's episode. But then it's all about like how Batman perceives his tragedy. Mm-hmm. Batman's just kind of around sometimes. At no point is it from his perspective or his understanding or his emotional grips with that villain. It is just kind of that villain's perspective or this cop's perspective or whatever it might be. It's not Batman's perspective.
It's not Batman's perspective, and I do think this is a big flaw in the show, because whereas the animated series, as you said, I think most episodes were either about some kind of moral quandary that we're going to explore, or it's about Batman's relationship to these villains, either in a sympathetic way of like, Harvey was my friend and I want to help him, or Mr. Freeze is very like relatable, his wife is dying, I understand why he does these things, or in the way of like, the Joker is insane and I'm the only one who understands him and I'm the only one that can stop him. The animated series is very much like Batman's relationship to these villains is what kind of anchors most of the show. And this being mostly a year one really puts a hamper on that being possible. He doesn't know any of these villains because they're brand new. It's origin stories for all of them. But also the through line of the season, along with Harvey, the only other through line is Batman learning empathy and humanity. He needs to retain those things in order to be a good crime fighter. And that's kind of where we end the season of like, oh yes, I do have to retain my humanity in order to be Batman, to be a good person. So he doesn't have that through pretty much most of the season. The only time he shows like empathy to a villain is Nocturne, the vampire girl, when he won't let her burn up in the sun. I was like, this is so much closer to what you need.
That was way closer.
You need a sympathetic Batman who sees the humanity in his villains and shows them mercy and gets them help. And that was the closest that the show came, I think, to original series.
I fully agree.
Except maybe was slightly close also was the Catwoman episode because their banter felt just as good. The Catwoman episode, I think, actually slaps. I think that was a very fun episode. I'll talk about more in a second. But yeah, I think the year one nature of the show kind of takes away Batman's ability to have a relationship to these villains, and that makes it seem like it makes it seem like Andy is bad at his job. He loses a lot.
He loses pretty much every fight and everything. That's going to be another negative and point for me, which is just Batman sucks. He sucks shit. This is the worst Batman.
Right out the gate. Like, he doesn't stop the Penguin from blowing up the police department. He's right there. He's 5 feet away.
Yeah.
And Penguin's like, explode. And you're like, this is the season opener? And Batman never takes the L. He's never like, I'll have to do better next time. He's like, no, that was the best I could do. I'm good at Batman.
And no one addresses it.
Well, no one's expecting anything from him.
But I mean, like, as a through line for the season, it's like the Penguin blew up a 70-story skyscraper. And then the next episode is just like police headquarters. And it's just a new building that's as big. And no one in the city is worried about the budget, the fact that we had to build or move or whatever the hell. It's never really brought up.
Harvey's not like, when I'm mayor, we won't blow up police precincts or anything like that.
Like, Batman loses a fight to an actor.
Yeah.
Like, and the problem with this show not being from his perspective as well is that to have him lose fights is something that you can do that is charming. It's something that, like, year one comic books do, films like Batman Begins do, where it's just like he falls, he hurts himself, and he's like, I need to redesign this mask, or I need to start training this, and then you get a montage or something. And you see all of these failures as an opportunity for him to grow. And then we see him grow because he's the POV character in most of these stories. Because he's not the POV character in this, he fails. And then he just kind of isn't on screen for a while. And he doesn't learn anything, and we don't see anything, and he doesn't train, he doesn't adapt, which is Batman's biggest thing, is that it's not that he wins every fight, it is that he never loses a fight twice.
Yeah, he comes in, he's like, I made a gadget while we were separated.
Or I've trained and physically adapted. But if we don't see that side, it's just him losing and slinking away to lick his wounds. I think one of the worst examples of this or the best example of it being bad is the Harley Quinn episode. And I really like this reimagining of Harley Quinn. I think it rules.
I also like this imagining a lot, but I agree that Batman is not his best in this episode.
He shows up, and this is such a chance for empathy as well, because Harley Quinn is this another character who in this imagining is in a privileged position who is trying to punish the bad people of Gotham. She is someone who actually has a lot in common with Batman, and Batman doesn't let his guard down in their court-mandated sessions, and there's a really interesting play there. And then he shows up and he's like, what's all this? And then she just closes the door and he's gassed and the building's going to blow up in 5 minutes. And he's like, oh no. And he falls asleep and the building does blow up with him in it. He does not wake up. He does not stop it. It completely is a success from Harley's perspective. And it blows up and it's a building on a cliffside. And the cage that he is in that is full of knockout gas in a burning building then falls off of a cliff into the ocean. He is killed like 3 different ways and times simultaneously at that level of failure. And then like 6 minutes later, he's just there. And we never see him like have that tense, like, I'm waking up and I'm now in a glass case that's sinking underwater and I've got to come up with a clever way to hold my breath while breaking this glass and get out, and I've got to learn from this. It's just, he died. And then the show was just like, actually, never mind. And then he hadn't died.
We need him alive, actually. And he just comes and saves Barbara, and you don't get to see how he did any of the stuff, how he survived. Yeah, I thought that was a missed opportunity because, as I just said, Batman's relationship to his villains is what's interesting. So the fact that they like built in that he actually knew Harley, like he was her patient, so he like knows her. He would know how she clicks, like maybe why she's doing this, and gave them a real chance to be like, he's going to stop Harley by talking her down or understanding her or figuring out like a tick of hers and knowing where she's going to show up. And he really just shows up and he's like, is this where Harley lives? And then just gets knocked out. And I'm like, well, why did we build this relationship?
Yeah.
in the court mandated therapy sessions. Like that was such a great idea for him to have a relationship with a villain.
Yep. But he doesn't use it. Barbara's the one who solves that.
Barbara
which
does.
is like fine, but
Because I will say a positive of this show is the reimagining of most of the female characters. They have bigger roles, they're more diverse.
Yes.
And I do really like that, but it definitely is like, it's still called Batman.
yeah.
Yeah, like Barbara got to save the day for the most part. Batman still showed up and saved her, but like it was still like I don't want it at the expense of Batman.
Well, Batman's just the Deus Ex Machina, where it is Barbara is the one who solved the plot and the mystery and engaged in everything. And then at the end, she fell off a cliff and Batman was like, I didn't die in that other scene, and catches her and lays her down and is like, bye. And it's like, so he just fails the whole episode and then just kind of shows up as an extra life at the end of episodes.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that they want this to feel like, because he does this a bunch of times where he just kind of shows up. And it's right, you're right. He's not the POV character, so he does just kind of show up a lot. Do you remember in Avengers Assemble, Black Panther would always just go off and do his own thing and then reappear, the cartoon show?
Love
and it
that.
it would fucking rule. You'd be like, oh, we're all gonna die. And then Black Panther would be
Or
like,
that was Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
oh, it was Earth's Mightiest Heroes. No, you're right.
Which
Thank
is
you.
a really good show.
Yes,
really
in case
good
you guys
show.
are wondering which Avengers you should watch, Earth's Mightiest Heroes slapped so hard.
Really good show.
It was so good. And it would always be so cool when Black Panther would just appear and be like, I was off doing my own thing, but it was cool and it was built into the story and enough other stuff was happening that it doesn't feel like a lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like that's what they want Batman to be, but I'm like, that show wasn't called Black Panther though.
Yes.
Black Panther could just creep off and like solve a problem on his own and not have to explain what he did.
Yeah.
But I have to see what Batman does.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of like diversification of characters works in an ensemble show where it's like, well, we can kind of take a divergence from where we were in the 90s, which I think that is very important for representation and for storytelling. And it's something that a show like X-Men 97 has success doing, to be like, what if we weren't the Wolverine show? And what if we diversified from that? And it's like, hell yeah, but you're the X-Men. You're allowed to have other X-Men. It's all about mutants and X people doing X people mutant things.
Yeah,
But
a Batman show is just still called Batman.
It's still
so
called
he's still
Bat-
got to be
yeah.
the main character.
and everyone else needs to kind of support that or be day players to a certain degree, or like have their one episode that's incredible.
Yeah, I will say though, as I touched on before, I think the Catwoman episode is very fun.
I agree.
The Catwoman episode really touches on, I think maybe because she doesn't kill people, so you can't just be like very lighthearted about it. Like her maid Greta is the star of the series.
Oh, love Greta.
Greta selling off all of her stuff and just leaving town. Oh, Greta is the hero of Gotham.
We stand Greta in this household.
We stand Greta, and I think Catwoman just had a lot of fun. Christina Ricci voiced her. Like, it was exactly what you want from Catwoman. She's playful. She's not too dangerous. She banters with Batman. She does cat stuff.
Yeah, she's catty.
She's catty. It was a little weird when suddenly she had a panther because they had not seeded that into the show.
That came out of nowhere.
There was no panther.
Yeah, a fully trained panther.
And you weren't even in a zoo. It's not like she opened a door. They were in a museum.
Yeah. She left the house that day with her fully trained panther that she did not have yesterday.
No, and this is not a Michelle Pfeiffer, I got like eaten by cats and now have like cat connections.
There's a little bit of a mystical element to it.
This is just a lady who's like, I love cats.
I love cats, and I did some martial arts when I was younger.
Yeah, and may I also say, her apartment must fucking stink.
That's got to be one nasty place.
I know you have a maid, but that level of cats, you must have like 18 litter boxes.
Well, this is why I stand Greta for quitting, selling all of her shit and taking all that money to be like, you're telling me that you cleaned up after 72 cats for 3 years and none of your paychecks cleared? Why did you keep showing up to work, Greta? Like you didn't rob Catwoman. Catwoman robbed you.
Wage theft is real.
Yes.
This is literally wage theft. That was wages she was owed. No court would convict Greta.
No.
Greta, you're free and clear.
Greta, you're a goddamn hero in my eyes.
So I really liked that episode. I will say the one thing Catwoman did that I was just very subtly unforgivable was, so she's robbing this, and this was just a weird thing for me. She was robbing this couple, and they're asleep in their bed, and she's like opening their safe and getting all their jewels. And they have a cat, and she's like, hello, kitty. And then when she leaves, she takes their fucking cat.
Yeah.
And that's not cool.
That's not cool.
They weren't like bad cat owners.
Yeah.
They were just asleep. And she stole their cat. And then Batman fights her. So the cat gets left on a roof. So that couple just like lost their jewels, whatever. But they lost their cat.
It's very rude because Catwoman taking in 50 plus stray cats.
Stray cats, of course.
Is it extreme? Yes. Is it kind? Sure. Is it rude to Greta the maid that you haven't paid in 3 years? Very. But it doesn't hurt anyone. Stealing people's pets that's not cool. That's not cool. Even if they're rich, that's not cool.
It made me feel worse than the murders.
Yeah.
Because the murders, I kind of was like, well, I get it. I get why pretty much all of these murders have happened by either bad guys or like good guys getting murdered or whatever. But I'm like, Catwoman? And that cat just lost its parents.
And for the jewelry stealing, it's like, yeah, I'm all for wealth distribution by any means necessary. No one's arguing for pet redistribution.
No.
That's not part of the current problem with capitalism. No one is mad at the people at the top for having all the good pets. That's not part of it.
Yeah,
That's not part of it, Catwoman.
She wasn't even like, oh, this is one of those Siamese expensive boys or something. She was just like, my cat.
She just stole a cat.
Honestly, I lost a lot of respect for her in that moment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was still a fun episode.
Still a fun episode.
But I lost a lot of respect.
I think one of the funnest episodes.
I think the second funnest episode, Onomatopoeia is a new villain for me.
I also wasn't that familiar with Onomatopoeia.
Well, apparently he's a Green Arrow villain usually.
Yeah, it rules.
He's cool.
Fun. This one felt very close to a traditional animated series for me of just like a one-off villain of the week, just kind of like a little silly, but that kind of makes it scarier in certain ways.
A little silly, but like with more fun visuals, not just his face. Like when all of them get off the train with their like clear Tommy guns that are supposed to look like guitars, it's like 12 dudes in a row. It's like, oh, 12 assassins all took the same car. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, just really fun visuals. And yeah, then him just like only making sound effects. It feels like it shouldn't be scary. Like
but
you're like, oh,
is.
This Michael Winslow guy, just like, I love sound effects. But it is scary because it's like, make a sentence. And he's like, no.
When he's following the car trail and he's just going drip, 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 and just like looking at the oil stains on the cement, I was like, this is scary. And then it switches to playful with like him doing the classic biff, bam, pows.
Yes.
And so like its ability to tone switch is very fun, and I really liked that.
Yeah. Just even getting introduced when he walks out and he's like, dun, dun, dun. I'm like, I'm going to love this guy.
Yeah.
This guy's a keeper.
Onomatopoeia is a new hit for me as well.
You don't get a lot of new villains that you love. So
No.
thank you, Onomatopoeia.
Thank you, Onomatopoeia, for coming into our life. I like that a lot. I also kind of like some of the darker themes and tones in this show. The fact that they just do murders, I was quite shocked by, but I am very much on board for. I really like how hard they've shown Bullock and corrupt cops being. The ACAB-ness of this show is pretty extreme of Bullock and who's the other cop?
Flass, I believe.
Flass.
Yeah.
So Bullock and Flass, like when they have Firebug and they're just like, yeah, let's let them loose to burn down some poor neighborhoods and then we have an excuse to shoot them and maybe we can catch someone else and get a reward. And it's just like, and then they just point blank kill a man kill a man who is suffering from like debilitating mental illness and who is asking for help a lot of the times as well. And that was a really dark tone, but I respect the show for going there of being like, hey, if that felt like the actual only point of this show, trying to kind of modernize and update this for the world that we exist in today, of them being like, yeah, corrupt cops aren't just kind of like whackety schlappity do. Corrupt cops are letting arsonists loose to burn down poor neighborhoods so they have an excuse to use unnecessary force. Mm-hmm. It's bad out here.
Yeah.
And I respected the hell out of that.
It really gave some stakes because I think a lot of the times the Gotham like bad cops are just letting people go. They're not causing active harm, but letting villains go is causing active harm. But they're not like point blank shooting guys who have witnessed them do a crime and killing them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time it is just like, yeah, I take money from Rupert Thorne, I let him know if the cops are coming on his tail. And you're like, yeah, that's very bad, but it's not like it doesn't shock you like this
Yeah.
did. When Bullock
There's a
just
boat full of knockoff purses coming into the harbor, and I've been paid to look the other way. And
Yeah.
it's like, I
All
guess that's
right.
corrupt. But I
this
don't,
was like
what?
this is corrupt. Yeah, this is next level of like and the season ending with like there's only 3 good cops.
Yeah.
And they all agree. The 3 good cops are like, it's just us and Batman, I guess. So there is. I will say the show wants to. I did like that aspect of it, and I actually would like to do it more because it feels like there was a couple episodes where they were like, let's introduce a moral quandary, and I'm like, it was really unclear.
Yeah.
Like the episode, actually the onomatopoeia episode is very much a like Gordon versus Barbara of like, do you send people to prison or do you show leniency based on their individual circumstances? And at the end of the day, there's no answer. And like having no answer to a question like that can be like, it's for yourself to decide. But the episode really didn't feel like it even knew or wanted or had an opinion on like who was right. And they're both like good guy characters, so maybe they both can be right. Like, some people need to go to prison and some people do need their circumstances to be considered. But it was like, normally when there's a moral quandary episode, I'm like thinking about it later. But this one didn't leave me thinking about it. It just left me like, I don't think the episode knew what to do with that.
Yeah.
They came up with a moral idea and didn't know like how to really display it.
The end theme ended up being, what if it's complicated? But it didn't have much more to say than that.
But it didn't lay out like all of the arguments on both sides clearly enough for me to be like, it is complicated. Yes. I'll consider your arguments.
Because I think like the more intellectual version of that is, it is complicated, and we actually need both of these people existing in our society, constantly arguing about it to create a system of checks and balances to sometimes be right and sometimes be wrong. And hopefully the arguments end up in the morally correct column more often than not. But the idea of like, we need people at odds one another to keep each other in check and challenged and just mentally engaged in the debate of what is ethical, what is moral, and what is our responsibility to society and to each other. And I think that is the important part of the important way to phrase that argument, to frame it. And this show is just kind of like, I don't know, it's crazy.
You just framed it great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the show...
That's off the dome.
But the show, like, if the show had ended that way of being like, we need both these characters. But the show very much ended with Barbara just walking away being like, I don't know if I'm right or my dad's right.
Huh, how about that? How about that one?
We won't discuss this again.
Well, see you later.
And also that episode was a little too jammed with like, it actually, I think wasn't going for this, but it made a subtle like moral point that I thought was interesting with 2 scenes that juxtaposed. And it was Gordon. So it's Gordon had been like, someone tried to kill him. And then Bullock was like, well, let's just round up all the crooks and we'll beat them up and we'll get them to tell us like who did it. And Gordon's like, no, we are not turning this city into like gang war. We're not just going to beat up anyone we feel like it. That's not what we're going to do. And then it cuts to Batman doing exactly that.
Exactly what the corrupt cops wanted to do.
Yeah, and it's like it's actually kind of interesting to propose that, but the episode doesn't examine it in any way, and the season doesn't examine it in any way.
Yeah.
And it was like, I really felt like this was going to be Batman and Gordon at odds about like how they each do this. Because that is exactly how Batman solved the problem of who tried to kill Gordon. He beat up a bunch of people. He went to prison. He beat up the people at prison. He got all the information.
And that is exactly the problem with the concept of vigilantism, which is that there's not much of a difference between a vigilante and a corrupt cop a lot of the times.
I mean,
it's
even
just that
less
one of them
oversight.
doesn't get paid. And that's
One of them doesn't get paid.
Yeah.
And less oversight.
Yeah.
Because Gordon wasn't there to tell Batman, hey, don't beat up crooks on my behalf. I don't want that. And Batman just did it. But I was like, that's actually a very interesting like storyline as well that was not explored in any way. So I was like, you guys are touching on some things that I really want to sink my teeth into. And you're just giving me little bites.
I think by not having Batman as the main character is why they don't get to explore that as deeply. Because even this whole journey that he goes on of like, and it's a soft journey of ending the season of like, they're also paralleling him with Two-Face to be like, is he someone who is kind and then snaps at the people every now and then very dangerously? He picks up a gun and fires it around your head. He's yelling at Alfred at times. And it's like, okay, is he just a full-on psychopath who's barely hanging on to the other side of his personality? And that's kind of loosely there, but he doesn't have enough screen time and isn't the lead character as Batman to explore that. And like same thing with like him paralleling corrupt cops and a bad villain of Two-Face. And it's just like, okay, is this series about him learning to not be the villain? Because right now he's just a masked character in Gotham. He's not the masked hero. He is just a creepy spook who is around Gotham sometimes. And is this show about him learning what the definition of a hero is? But because he's not the main character, we don't really get to go in depth about that.
No, in the Gentleman Ghost episode, he's kind of the main character. That might be the only one because he had to learn a new skill. He had to learn about magic. He had to like talk to Alfred and be like, what the hell? That was a real ghost. The episode wasn't as funny as I'm making it sound. It was crazy that was a real ghost.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's just going to be a dude with like some shiny powder on him. There's no way this is an actual ghost like usual. And it was. He was a real ghost.
Yeah. Normally they ease us into those waters with Batman, where Batman's a very grounded character, and then you meet Superman, and then maybe you're in space once or twice, and then you meet Constant. But like this is just like, yeah, he met a ghost in Gotham. Ghosts are around.
Yeah, ghosts are absolutely real. He put the ghost into a test tube. Don't even worry about it. Then he met a vampire like 3 episodes later.
Yeah.
But apparently that's just
they
an affliction.
didn't call it a vampire.
She had an affliction.
Yeah.
She had an affliction. But yeah, Gentleman Ghost, I think, was the closest to like Batman's the lead. He solves a problem. He is the POV character here.
Yeah.
It was like Lucius was in it a little bit, but more of the plot device than anything. So like I think Gentleman Ghost episode also got like, and it was like had some fun lines too. It was like that was a funner episode.
It's a ghost who wears a top hat. I think that's pretty funny. Like that's just one of those things where it's like, oh, you've created a built-in playfulness. It's about a fancy ghost.
I mean, the fact that his name is just Gentleman Ghost.
We're having a laugh already.
You're always enjoying a Gentleman Ghost. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm feeling pretty good on Batman: The Caped Crusader. How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like we didn't get to like some more of like the positives, but that's
lay one more positive on me before we go.
What was one more? Oh, this was like a small thing. Oh, well, Joker tease, but it also was like contractually obligated.
Yeah.
This was a small thing. This was maybe the only moral quandary thing that actually hit me. I should have said this a minute ago. That actually like got me in my bones, and I'm like, I love that. And it's when Gordon, someone's after him. He's being assassinated. They're trying to kill him, and he shows up at his house, and he's like, I don't want any police escort if like I'm not gonna make this anyone else's problem. And Barbara's like, you can't go into our house. Our neighbors are 10 feet away, and they're gonna die if someone comes here to shoot up our house.
Yeah.
And he's like, fuck yeah, I gotta go.
It was like, if you don't get shot, that means the bullet has missed you. And where did it go?
It went into our neighbor's house, and he looks around, and he sees like kids' bikes in the yards, and he's like, fuck, I can't bring this into this neighborhood. And he does leave. And I really hate the trope of like, I don't care that someone tried to kill me. I won't go into protective custody. It's so dumb. Like, just go into protective custody.
Yeah.
There's never a reason not to do it.
Yeah.
But like that being the argument that made him do it, I was like, I love this writing. This was top notch writing.
That was sharp.
Yeah,
Very
I've
sharp.
never seen that argument of like reason to go into protective custody before, and I really, really loved it. So that'll be my end positive.
I love that. You know what? To keep the positivity going, because you liked it better than me, and I want to like end on a little positivity. 2 things that I loved.
Oh.
It looks great. Visually,
it
it looks great. They continued looking great. They've definitely continued the spirit of just the visuals and impactful visuals and just the tone of everything. It looks fantastic, and I love this fun timeline. I love that it exists in this age where phone numbers still have letters in it.
Klondike!
And I think that is terrific and charming, and it's one of the more interesting versions of Batman when a computer doesn't do everything. Him like running microfilm through like microfilm of newspapers to scan for information using a physical microscope.
Having to go to the library because that woman's read more books than him, and that's the only way to retain information in the 40s.
Yeah. To not have the world indexed for you yet makes him a much more active protagonist and way more interesting. So on top of it just being like tonally like blimps and steam coming out of pipes, it's Gotham. It also just makes it way more interesting for how characters interact, and is just tonally a cooler place to set Batman. So I love the timeline that this is created in and how it looks and feels. The vibes of it all are quite good.
I will agree. Yeah, I think that's the essence of Batman that I like about it. He's just detectiving with the most basic skills.
Yeah.
And yeah, I sincerely hope they get a season 2, and I really would love like just like Batman POV and all these little changes, because I think at its core it works. But you know what? We should probably talk about what we would change.
Let's go in for the close where we ask the final question of what would we change. So now that we've discussed everything we've discussed, what would you change about this if you could change anything? Before we do ask that final question, we will remind you, as we do every week, to please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, wherever you get your podcasts. It's a free way to support the show. It helps us move up the charts. It makes us feel really good because we read them, and when you say nice things, I don't know, people like reading nice things about themselves. As conceited or as it might seem, I read a nice thing about myself and I feel pretty good for a while. It's a nice thing that happens. So it's a free way to give us an endorphin hit and help the show.
Send endorphins to Andrew and Diana directly into our brains with a 5-star review.
You can directly chemically affect my body. And that's a wild power that you have that I am only speaking slightly in jest right now. And I'm being sincere.
You are being sincere, and there's a slight bit of fear in your eyes as you realize what you're saying is true that I am just going to let the listeners know about.
I am only kind of figuring out some stuff right now about how this feedback loop works, and to realize that there are additional chemicals and electrical signals released in my body that changes how I live my day. According to this, there's a lot going on, so please send some of that.
He needs a hit, you guys.
I need a hit.
I can only do so much.
Please give Papa his medicine. And as well, if you do want to support the podcast monetarily, you can do that over on Patreon, which is a monthly subscription service where you can subscribe at whatever is in your budget, and you'll get cool bonuses for doing so. For example, at the $3 a month level, you get these episodes early and ad-free, so you could be listening to this. On this one, you'd be able to listen to it on Thursday rather than Monday, and there would be no ads in it, so you can also get like a little early heads up and then decide whether or not this thing would be worth your time. So that's a cool thing you can get at $3. At $10 level, you get an exclusive bonus episode of this podcast every single month.
Every single month. This month we did Twister and lead up to Twisters, and it was so fun. You guys aren't going to want to miss it. There's a reason I talked about Twisters at the beginning. I love tornadoes. They're fun. And you immediately get access to the entire back catalog. So much Talk from Superheroes waiting for you. It's episodes on topics we never cover on the regular podcast. They're ad-free. And I'm just going to throw in, if you buy a year up front, you get a month free. And it's just such a good deal.
That's a cool deal, too.
If you know you're going to want to be here for a bit, get that month free.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just like the whole back catalog, that's a sweet deal too.
So much time.
If you're about to like travel or something and you've got like, I need some entertainment time, it's a great time to like sign up and then like just download some of the old ones that seem interesting and be like, that's my plane right there.
That's great. And also, if you gotta want to talk about an endorphin hit, when we get a new patron,
that's a big, that's
boy,
a good one.
That's a
big day.
That's a big day. New patron day.
So check out our different subscription level options over at patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That is patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. And now let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change about this if you could change anything?
My change is pretty basic. We kind of like basically already talked about it. It just needs more Batman and it needs to be less middling. So I don't even care which way you go, but it either needs to be more energy, a little bit faster, or it needs to be just more noir, like just like all shadows. Because like, you can see Batman a lot. And I do love when he just sneakily creeps out of a shadow. It's all really fun. More over the topness, like more dames,
Yeah.
More accents. So either go like really like over the top campy noir, or just like give me a little bit more energy, a little bit more pep, and like quite a bit more Batman would be great in this Batman show. I feel like Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. Like there will be Batman in this Batman show.
Right. Will there? Well, knocking on the
Bruce
monitor.
Timm's door. And then another change is just for me. I got very excited one episode because I thought it was going to be a King Tut episode because it opens with King Tut. And then it was a Harley Quinn episode. And I like Harley Quinn. But I never got a King Tut episode. So there is a full King Tut episode. I think that villain is so fun. He's so over the top. He's so campy. And I really didn't like being teased and not given a full episode about King Tut. I haven't seen him since Batman 66, and he deserves a return. So I'm starting my campaign of King Tut back as a full-time villain. And I won't hear otherwise. Andrew, what would you change?
I love that. He's a silly villain. And also that would add to your other change of like swing more in either direction. You know, that's a campy, silly thing to do, to be like, it's a King Tut episode. To be like, really? We're doing that? Okay.
If you're going to do Gentleman Ghost, you can do King Tut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that ties nicely with your overall change of like, let's take some swings. For me, my big change is that is based around the detective mysteries. I think that this show needs to be Batman's POV because, in particular, it had some other problems that we've discussed like throughout this episode. In particular, it makes the detective mysteries boring as hell when we, the audience, know the answer, which is not something the animated series did. So like this whole 3-episode arc at the end where it's Batman being like, who threw acid on Harvey? And it's like, well, it's the mobster. And we saw the scene where the mobster went, throw acid on Harvey. And then a guy went, I'm here to throw acid on you because the mobster sent me. And then it cuts back to the mobster who's like, I sure am glad that this has happened. And then it cuts to Batman who's like, who did it? And we have to go on this journey of figuring things out where it's like, that's not how a noir story works.
No, not at all.
You know, like a film noir detective story doesn't start with like a detective in his office and then like cut to across town while someone's just like, I'm the one who did the crime, and then cut back to the detective trying to figure it out. So I think this needs to be Batman's POV, if not as a whole series, at the very minimum when there is a mystery and when he needs to show his competency as a detective. Because these mysteries of whodunits are 2 layers deep, and we as the audience have all the answers before he does, so we're not going on the journey with him.
I can agree with that. I think the Clayface episode, he like
that was
solved
closest.
it. Yeah, that was the closest. Yeah, he was like, that was mostly a Batman POV. It wasn't inherently clear what was happening because Clayface was like killing people and taking over their lives. So it was like, what is happening here? But every other episode was very much like, he just kind of shows up and he knows, or we already know, and he's trying to solve it afterwards.
Yeah, when he shows up to Harley Quinn's lair and he's like, Harley, what's going? And then he's knocked out, but we already know what's going on, and he never gets answers. It's like, you just seem like kind of an idiot, and like this wasn't a fun adventure to go on with you.
No, it wasn't fun. Yeah, it's all right. So more POV from Batman as he sells stuff,
especially for the detective mysteries.
I love that. No,
sweet.
Of course.
Well, we've done it. We've done another one. Thank you very much for listening. Next week, we're going to be back on the podcast, and we are going to be talking about the original Alien, 1979 Alien.
I can't believe we've never done Alien.
Kind of wild, huh?
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, we're doing it as a build-up to the release of Alien Romulus.
We had to like triple check the catalog to be like, we've never done Alien?
We've done all the Predators. We've done Alien versus Predators, but we have not done Alien 1979.
We've done like the new Prometheus-y ones.
Yes.
But not the old, not the OGs.
So we'll be talking about that next week on the podcast. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can find me most places. I'm at Ivimey, Ivimey.
I'm on Tumblr at Words of Diana, or I'm on Threads and Instagram at Pics of Diana.
And you can find both of us most places at From Superheroes, and you can check out all the podcasts and everything we create over at FromSuperheroes.com. Thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.